to Playbook for Performance, the official podcast of Shauna Corden, the Joan of Arc for corporate healing and performance. Join the quest to make work fun again by preparing leadership for engaging workplaces. And now, your host.
Hey everybody, welcome back. It's good to have you here again. So we're talking about your team, their styles, how they might be different than yours. And we've gone through each of the individual styles and what defines them. And remember that there is no good personality type. There's no bad personality type. Your personality type doesn't make you good or bad at your job. You shouldn't hire someone using this information. Really, it's just to help yourself understand what are the preferences, what are the tendencies of the individuals on my team, and how are we different? So again, imagine the face of a clock. If you're at an 11, your staff member's at a 4. Depending on if you're slightly inclined, moderately inclined, or strongly inclined, you're going to have to adapt. And I always like to use the example of trying to stretch a rubber band around each of the styles. If you're both actually on the numbers of the clock, you're going to have to stretch pretty hard. If you're more closer to the center of the clock, you may just find it very natural to work with one another and need to adapt your style very little. So today we're going to be talking about adapting yourself and adapting to lead others. So let's get into it. So we all want to adapt our style in this agile way to what our reports most need, or our peers, our partners, our children. So start with yourself. What's your most natural preference and tendency? You know, if you're ruling the world, if you have the house to yourself, the office to yourself, you have full reign, how do you like to run your day? How do you like to operate? Do you like to get up early and get your workout done and then not check email till you're in the office? Do you want to start talking to people on your drive or your commute to work? How do you like to work? Do you like to work independently? Do you like to work in teams? Do you want to do a lot of research and be prepared? Or are you ready to just kind of go in and wing it until you need more information? Depending on how you like to operate, you will be pretty close to some of your people and you may be very far apart. And again, it comes down to an awareness. I'm this way, they're that way. And what is my intention? Am I trying to stretch them and have them adapt their style to be more closer to mine because that's what I'm comfortable with and I'm the boss? Or are we looking to make things as easy for them as possible? And there's no right or wrong. Sometimes it comes down to retention. If you're difficult to work with because you want everybody to adapt their style 100% to you, you may have a hard time holding on to staff members. If you are constantly adapting your style to make others comfortable and things easier for them, you probably will have a higher rate of retention. So, some of the questions that come up at this time are, am I really being authentic if I adapt my style? So I think I mentioned this in the last podcast, but sometimes when I'm coaching my leaders, I'll say, well, what kind of leader were you today? And they were like, well, which one? I was 14 different leaders today. I had to adapt my style for all the different situations and people that I was interacting with today. And that's a very emotionally intelligent, adaptive leader. Sometimes we're a little burnt out. We don't have enough capacity to adapt as readily as we'd really like to. And that's okay. I think admitting it is half the problem solved. So letting your folks know that you're just stretched to capacity and that you'd like to be more patient, more understanding, more considerate of their operating style, but you just don't have it in you, that's okay. That's okay. So you are being authentic if you adapt. It just means that you're being more considerate. And I'll get into a couple more examples here in a minute. The other question that comes up is, if I'm so much of a chameleon adapting my style for everyone else, do people really know what I want and what I'm commanding as a leader? And the third question I get is, well, why do I have to do all the work? So let's break those down. So are you being authentic if you adapt? Of course you are. It just means that you are being appropriate per person, per situation. And I'll get into some examples here in a minute. Are you too much of a chameleon? This actually is a risk. If you're constantly deferring to other people's style all the time, they may have a hard time predicting what you really want or how you're going to respond in a given situation. And if the team gets together and let's say you're on holiday, you're in Rome, it's 89 degrees where I was recently. If they get together and they're trying to problem solve on your behalf while you're out, they may have a hard time predicting how you would want a situation resolved because you're so different with each of them. So that is a risk that comes through, and you do need to give more direction and impose your style of leadership on them in terms of this is how you want to operate, but at the same time, while working with individuals, adapt to their style somewhat, respecting their style. And the third is, why do you have to do all the work? Well, you're the leader. So by leading with an example of adapting to other people's styles, A, you can retain more people. B, it shows some respect. C, they're going to try and meet you halfway. So that's something that I think is really important, is that if you model this, people will follow, especially if they have the awareness and the tools to do so. So you do this today already. You may not realize it. You really do adapt your style quite a bit in situations, but it's usually due to convention or to power structure. And some examples are what you wear to the game, the football game, is different than what you wear to worship, right? You're probably not going to wear your game day jersey, into church. Okay. What you say to your friends is different than what you say to your boss. You're more relaxed with your friends. You feel like you can be yourself. They're not expecting you to perform. You might reveal some weakness or some concerns, where with your boss, you really want to project, hey, I got it all together. Don't worry about me. That's natural. You are adapting to situations based on your awareness and how you want to be perceived. So if you've visited a different country and you've relied on your own customs, you may have stood out a bit, or you may have even offended others because you didn't adapt. So I'm an American. I've been in Europe the last month. How Americans dress is pretty different than how Europeans dress. They stand out for different reasons. A lot of Europeans don't wear baseball caps, right? Pretty common in the US. Things like that. And there were lots of reminders going into holy places that women needed to have their shoulders covered, their knees covered. Men needed to remove their hats visiting any holy place. And that's an example of adapting your style, even though it might be common for you to have your shoulders showing, your knees showing, or to wear a baseball cap. You have adapted because that is the convention. That's what shows respect in that situation. So you're just doing the same thing when it comes to the style. So think of each person on your team as a different worship center, that has different rules about how they operate and what's expected. Some people on your team may curse casually, one-on-one. Some people might be really offended by that. So you're just adjusting your style to show that respect for those people, for those situations. Okay? So try to think of that example of visiting another country, trying a bit to fit in, not stand out, as how you adapt. It really is a demonstration of respect. So we choose not to offend, and for the most part, we try to fit in or be accepted by a group. This is a natural psychological phenomenon that has lasted for eternity. And so teams will naturally gravitate to the majority of the group in a lot of aspects, and of course, deferring to the leader's style. So next time in the podcast, we're going to be talking a lot more about the team culture and how teams adapt naturally, the aspects of diverse styles within a team, and how you can make this go more smoothly. One of the best aspects of doing a DISC personality assessment is that once you've done it, and someone else has done it, you can do what we call a comparison report. And it will tell you, compared to this person, you have more tact. Compared to this person, you move more quickly. Compared to this person, you're willing to take more risks, that kind of thing. And that can be super helpful for people who just don't seem to see eye to eye, or they seem to have a lot of conflict. It's not that they are being disrespectful to one another. Often it's a lack of awareness. Now, if they have the awareness and they're not budging a bit, that's a different situation. Then I can come in and I can do coaching for the group. But in this case, often it's really just awareness. And I joke with my teams that I work with, hey, the next couple of one-on-ones you have with this person, bring your comparison report. So that when you launch into whatever the business agenda is for the meeting, and you forget to ask, how was your weekend or how's your day going, that you read and go, oh, I see that I just violated one of your personal tenets. I'm sorry, let's back up. How was your weekend? Okay. And at the same time, this person is probably going to adapt and skip the casual catch up because they know that you're really driving towards that business result. So we really want to meet in the middle. Meet in the middle. So if you have questions, please send us a note. We would love to talk about your situation on air in a podcast and really go through how we can break this down so it's more of a solution. Because if you're having this problem, lots of people are having this problem. So you can email it to podcast@shaunacorden.com. Do invite your friends. Do rate the podcast. Do give us that subscribe on YouTube. If you're just listening, know that we're on YouTube. And you can watch and follow along and get some of the bullets as you go. We're really poised here to help your team succeed. So whether it's a virtual workshop, an in-person workshop, helping with communication, overcoming conflict, being more productive. That's what we're all about. So join us next time. We will talk more about the team aspects. And until then, take good care.
Thank you for listening to Playbook for Performance. To learn more about Shauna Corden, her consulting programs and tools, please visit her website at shaunacorden.com and follow us on social media at Shauna Corden.